Hey, Kelly, welcome to the Profit and Grit Show. How are you doing today?
Doing wonderful. Happy Friday.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for spending your Friday afternoon with me. So I just want to start out learning about you a little bit. Could you share what you do professionally?
Yes, I am the owner and founder of Work With Your Handz. We are a recruiting company that hires skilled tradespeople in the home services and commercial services industries. We actually hire from apprentice to the C-suite. So we will hire, anyone, basically anyone within the ecosystem of home services or commercial service space.
Very cool. By the way, I love your business name with the Z. I think it's pretty well. Just the name itself kind of says what you do, and then with the Z, that's extra cool. Who's responsible for coming up with a great name?
I came up with a great name. I think it was a collaboration. I was
Okay,
actually at a Pantheon event. So there were
okay,
a lot of people there who just took a little bit of a random poll at that event and it stuck. But Work With Your Hands with an S. They wanted just an incredible amount for the domain. So I was like, we can't, we're a startup. We're not paying that for that domain. So we put a Z on the end and voila, that domain was available. So
and not
it
only
kind
that,
of, yeah,
yeah, sorry. With
yeah,
the
it's
Z, it's got
cool.
a coolness factor.
Yeah. No, it worked. It was one of those like, huh, I kind of like it actually. So yes, we went through a couple iterations with the logo, but such a fun time to build a
Different.
company. It's
Very
awesome.
cool. Hey, so and then what about on a personal note? Anything you open to sharing just about yourself personally that you enjoy or about your life?
Yeah, I have three grown children. My youngest is still in college, but two sons and a daughter, and love to ski, love to golf, vacation, read, do all the things. I love working. I love work with your hands. Very passionate about growing the business. And people might say, "Why do you work so much?" It's not work to me. I really enjoy it and love helping home services companies get the talent they need.
Very cool. So I want to get to the story. How did you get into like why trades, why home services? Where did recruiting come along? I think if where this started, your husband runs a home services company, and is that where it initiated? And what did you learn kind of while you were seeing your husband run this business?
Yeah, no, it's we've been married for almost we'll celebrate three decades of marriage this February.
Wow.
So yeah, it's been fun. But yes, when we first started dating in a long time ago, he he had 10 employees at the time, 10 plumbers. And fast forward, he actually exited in June, but when he sold, it was 170 employees. So watching
Wow.
his company, yeah, start with plumbing, add HVAC 17 years later, add electrical about 9 years ago. But watching his company grow and watching all the trials and tribulations of staffing and having people on board, and the from the crazy stories about what someone did at work today, and then also look at what this one individual, how they're really, can you believe that they started as apprentice and this is what they're doing today? This is what this HVAC, salesperson, how they're moving the needle for the company. So it could be anyone from any department, but watching the company growth was a story in business ownership, the sacrifices that you make and the people that you need along the way to help grow your business, but also how you can affect their lives. And I mean, you can't do it without the people. So.
Right, right. Is there anything you learned or took away as you saw that evolution? Because that's quite a large amount of employee growth. Anything you
Mhm.
took away from that and while you were seeing it all unravel and unfold?
Yes, I guess from him it was just he had some really, you know, there's so many things you can take away,
Right.
but of the people that have just that you could affect their lives and really they're long-term employees. I mean, he had people who were working there when we started dating and still work there today. So, 30-year, 35-year employees, how you're shaping their and their families' lives, but also that you never can, certainly there's always people that you think you can trust, And how many times did you think, this person's somebody that would, they would tell you they would run through a brick wall for you, and then you find out that they were not trustworthy. So a little bit of a cautionary tale, I'd say, in some aspects, but it's the good and the bad, the yin and the yang of everything. There's people out there who will truly do anything for the company, and vice versa. You would do anything for them, and then there's always those that you need to watch your back on. So, he really, from seeing the company in its infancy, it was very interesting to be able to see. Everyone says hire slow, fire fast.
Right.
That's easier to do the larger you are. To have like a really good onboarding and training, and to be able to have great benefits and all the things that retain employees and attract them to you, all of that comes easier the larger you are. So it really is kind of a stair step approach where you can get better talent as
Yeah.
you become more mature company.
That's a great point. And I think it gets glossed over a lot of times, these sayings where it's like one size fits all, and it's just so not true. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, if it's your key player and all of a sudden you're gonna like something's not working out, you can't just all of a sudden say, oh, tomorrow they're not there and not have big ramifications of that.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah,
It,
yeah,
it's
interesting.
yeah.
What was your husband's? Did he have any secret sauce, or is this where Work With Your Hands kind of came to be in terms of because he hired a ton of people to get to the level he got? Was that, did he just build a good leadership team? I mean, what created that ability for him to scale and grow to that size?
I think a lot of it was the leadership, honestly.
Okay,
Having a really solid CFO and director of operations that are still there today, working with the company that purchased My Plumber Plus. But that leadership team, they had a very good, I'd say, just synergy and dynamic between my husband and his core leadership, where um, they trusted each other. They're very good friends outside of the business as well. So having that culture and really knowing that, I heard on one of your other episodes about being able to walk away and go on a vacation for a month, and is your business still going to run? He didn't get there. It took a while to get to that
sure.
point, but eventually he was able to, and that's having true leadership,
Right.
and having that team below you. But I don't think there's a secret sauce. We definitely helped him. I would say when we came 7 years ago, we're going into our eighth year, but he was our first customer. It really was. I mean, I've told the story, but it's true. We were at a Pantheon event. Everyone there was talking about, where are the people? I can't find them. If I could do all the things that everyone's saying to do, but
Right.
I need the talent, and how do I find them? So that was where it was light bulb moment. Let's figure out a way to help all these contractors. And My Plumber Plus was the first one to give us a shot. So that was where we could be off to the races. And I don't have a recruiting background. My background is in finance, but knowing the industry that we wanted to serve, just learned trial by fire. Get into it, jump right in with both feet, and start doing it. What we learned quickly was the blue collar workers that we need to hire, the skilled trades folks. That there is such a nuance in home services and commercial services. Anybody who's behind the wheel of a vehicle, they have windshield time, they're turning a wrench, they're not behind a computer waiting for you to ping them about an interview. You have to touch them multiple times to get them to return your call, to get them to show up for an interview. You need to be very persistent, reminding people, this is your interview time. Are you going to be there? Let's reschedule. You don't want to burn a bridge, la, 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 all the things. Just making sure that they truly understand how important it is to be at this interview. If they're interviewing with someone who is a stickler for time, you better be there 5 minutes early. Really going through a lot of interview prep, but blue collar and I think skilled trades people, they're out there. It's a different, not having a recruiting background, I didn't have anything to compare it to, but I knew the people that worked at my husband's company, And so it was just a matter of, I knew I could build a rapport with them instantaneously. It was just a matter of getting them on the phone, finding their contact information sometimes, and then being persistent about you need to show up for the interview. How's it going for your first date? Like, your first day, are you going to show up? Did you do your drug screen? Like all of those kind of steps in between to make sure that they did what they needed to do to start. So I'd say probably not having a recruiting background may have helped me in this instance because I didn't know what I didn't know.
Yeah.
But really, you know, having the knowledge of the industry was paramount,
Yeah.
100%.
I love your transparency, and I love hearing your story, the progression from, kind of seeing firsthand from your husband's company and then turning it into something, one, value to them and then value to other people in your own business. That's awesome. Hey, I want to switch gears. So I want to talk about this finance background and how it relates into recruiting. So, what are some common metrics and for folks out in the audience that home service owners that are, what metrics should they be looking at when they're thinking about whether it be recruiting or the lack of hiring people? Can we go just a few important ones and then maybe just dive a little bit deeper into them?
Yes, I would say first and foremost, time to fill. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
basic recruiting metric, but if it is, it's just like speed to lead, just like the ability to, when someone think of it as your, just like your customer. They're calling, I have a plumbing problem. If you can get there in 3 days, click, I'm calling someone else. So, and candidate is the same way. If they're active candidate, and they're actively out there seeking a job, you need to get to them quickly. If they respond to your job ad, they walk into your door, they're a referral from someone else on your team, treat it the same way. Get in front of them as quickly as possible. Get them in for an interview, meet them at a Starbucks, do whatever you need to do to get in front of them. An active candidate will have a job within a couple of days, they'll have offers. It's just the nature of the world we're in right now. So you have to be very, very quick. So time to fill is one of those that is I would say you need to be paying a lot of attention to. If they want to give 2 weeks, whatever, what we measure is there's a time to hire and time to fill. Time to hire is from the application date to when someone gets an offer, and you want that to be within 2 weeks. If possible, if shorter, if you can. And then
Sure.
time to hire sometimes includes that 2 weeks notice. But
Wow. Okay. What about like where does, because you mentioned something in our earlier discussion, you talked about, people are telling me what I should do with my business, and that's all sound great, but I don't have enough people to do it. So,
yeah.
what about the cost of vacancies? Like, where does that fit in, and what do you see typically?
The cost of vacancies, it's different for every position, but
Yeah.
I would say, like, if you don't have a comfort advisor and you're coming up on the summer season, you're in big trouble. The cost of
Right.
that vacancy and the opportunity cost is millions of dollars. If you are, if it's a plumber, you're thinking of a plumber as a profit center. So what is the cost of that? It depends on the plumber, but I mean, plumbers can bring in $1 million on their own as well. So the cost of the vacancy, if you have the leads coming in the door and you're turning away calls, that's easy to calculate. Harder to calculate sometimes is I want to hire this person. I'm going to have to put the marketing behind it to get the calls on the board to feed that person. But if you have calls that you're turning away because you don't have the person in the butt in the seat or whatever you want to say, if you don't have that person, that can add up to millions of dollars. So
Right.
it's no joke. It's real money.
Right. One of the things I hear, Kelly, a lot in my client base is, and these are just various things, but one example, someone will say to me, "Hey, we really don't do that much of HVAC because it's really hard to find a qualified HVAC crew, installs in particular, in this case, this example. But so most of our business is in plumbing." Or I'll hear, we're in a part of the country where like you're just never going to find a comfort advisor. It just ain't going to happen. Like they're not out there. What's your thought when you hear those types of comments as a recruiter?
That's completely untrue. Even in the hardest of markets, and it might cost you more. So one of the metrics, cost per hire, that can range. It could be over $1,000 for one person. It could be a lot less depending on, where you're at in the country. So you have to be realistic about what you're willing to put into finding that person. But I would say, even for my husband's company, one of his top salespeople did not have an HVAC background. He was just a good salesperson. So very, very smart. He was very clean cut. He was very good at building rapport very quickly because of his prior. He used to sell Harley Davidsons, so he just could build a rapport with people very quickly. But taught they taught him HVAC. So then he went on to sell, $4 to $5 million consistently every year. So I would say, even if they're not plug and play, they're not somebody who has a HVAC background, you're going to have to teach them. They're out there. The same with plumbers or anybody else. I mean, there's areas in the country where you have a huge union presence, you have a lot of licensing requirements. You're in a rural area, like you've got the trifecta of things against you, but they're still out there. It's just a matter of how much money can you put into the resources to finding the person, and how much time are you going to put into it to be able to do it. But a lot of that, if you're in a very small rural area, you need to have the network. You really need to dominate your market. You need to be at every fall festival. You need to be at every high school talking about your jobs. You need to be at the trade schools. You need to be in the community talking about the opportunity.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Where do you feel culture relative to how much you're willing to pay someone fits into this? So, what I mean by that is, should we be a little more open to how much we pay for someone in hopes of, not hopes, but in with our intent of having a better culture? Where does that kind of fit in? I hope that question makes sense.
It does. It's very, I would say, um, it is a tough one. And
Yeah.
I think also it's one of those things where if you don't have I mean, numbers are numbers. So if you don't have them, you're starting out, you have a small shop, and maybe you don't feel like you can price like the big guys. So you're not going to be like the low cost provider either, but you don't have the ability to pay someone top dollar. You need to be at least competitive. And at that point, I would say have enough conversations. And this is where it comes in to do not, I would say, never hire with the sacrifice of culture just to get someone in the door. It is not worth it because it will drive away anybody who's good. So you do need to be cognizant of who you're bringing on board. And sometimes it's just a matter of talking to enough people to really be like, oh my gosh, this is somebody who values what we do. It all clicks. And you don't get frustrated. You may have to talk to 10 people. You may have to talk to 15 people, but that's sometimes what you have to happen. And maybe that person doesn't care as much about money. They need to have every Saturday off to coach their son's little league. Maybe they are a single parent and they need a special schedule. They don't really care that you don't offer insurance, but they need a stipend. They want an opportunity for growth. You're willing to make that path for them. So there's open the aperture for what you might be able to offer someone, and do not sacrifice. We hire with Warren Buffett's principles internally: intelligence, energy, and integrity. So if you don't have intelligence and energy, we're not going to hire you. Integrity is sometimes you don't find out till after you've hired, but we try our best to interview for all those three things. And it's been really, 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 it's worked really well for us. And the integrity piece, if we get an inkling that the integrity is not there, it's not going to be a fit. So we do really don't want to make sure not drive away anyone who's working for us that's working well and is an A player, because we have somebody who's not gonna fit our culture and our core values.
Yeah. So intelligence, I think to some degree we can interview for that. Energy, I don't know if energy is you're using it in the same way that I used to use it, was drive. And I always had a hard time with that one because in interviews and so you can look at history a little bit, but it's really hard to know how good someone's drive is. How are you guys, what do you think you do that maybe can spot like the energy side of things, assuming we're kind of talking about something similar?
Yeah, no, I think for me, energy is just an overall, I'd hate to say vibe, but
Okay,
when you
okay.
talk to thousands of people,
Yeah.
it is really easy to spot good energy.
Yeah.
And if someone is positive, They're not blaming their past employer on every problem
Got
in
it.
their entire life. They're not negative. They don't, it's not 2 o'clock in the afternoon and they feel like, and you speak with them and it's like they just rolled out of bed.
Right.
It's, there's just, the glass is half full. They're energetic. They talk, they speak positively. And for me, I guess because I've talked to so many people, it's pretty easy to spot,
Yeah.
on our end, somebody who's got those good positive vibes.
Yeah, it is vibe. Yeah, so it's a little,
Yeah.
sorry, I kind of interpreted it a little differently, but now I get what you mean. It is definitely vibe. So if you bring in a positive energy about you and just probably communicate in a positive way, have this good feel, they leave you with a good feeling as opposed to, I know you've done this, you come out of an interview and it feels like your all your energy sapped as opposed to you come out and you're like, oh man, that was such a great conversation.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
they're asking good questions. They're engaged.
yeah,
They want to know more. If it's a video interview, they're making eye contact. They come prepared. All of those things point to a good energy as far as just like, somebody that you want to work with, you know?
yeah. Good
Yeah.
stuff. Okay, I want to talk about this speed to hire. We've seen private equity come into the space for a while now, and a lot of times I'll hear things where they're hiring people like the same day, or they're willing to move really super fast when they find a candidate they like. What does this mean as it relates to the typical shop that is a little more, might be family owned or is small, and their system isn't really set up for that? What would you say to them, and what should we be doing as, and I'm talking shops that are probably under 20 million, somewhere between 1 to 20 million. They don't, maybe as we get 10 million or more, they might have a small leadership team, but under that, they might not. What's your thoughts around that?
Yeah, it is tough. I feel for them, but I would say they have as much power. Make an offer contingent on a background check and a drug screen. Um, you know, if you are insistent and you have a process that's worked for you, and you do not, when we work with these kind of companies who are like, I'm not that they have to do a ride along. They have to come in and work a half day so we can see them, and someone else from our team can vouch for them. We're not going to sacrifice and not do any of these steps because we've been burned in the past. That's fine. Just know that you're going to have people who drop off because they go and they take other jobs, and you're going to have to be okay with that. So the companies that we work with that do all of those steps, they're okay. They're like, if they don't want to go through the steps with us, then we lost them. That's okay. They can come back another time if it's their current job doesn't work out. But they're going to have to go through all those steps. Otherwise, I would say if you don't have a ride along and you're able to move quickly, have a backup for an interview. So if you get called out if you're the hiring manager or you're the GM or whatever, you're doing the interviews, have a backup. If you have to go into the field, okay, who can do that interview in your place? So that someone is always available for an interview. Do the Starbucks interview, do the phone interview, do a virtual interview, make a contingent offer. There's things that are in your control, and do those. Especially if you know that someone looks good on paper, has the good intelligence, energy, and from what you can tell, integrity. If it goes well, then for us, we have a replacement guarantee on every single hire. So use our guarantee to your advantage. Otherwise, I mean, really, yes, it hurts to have like a revolving door of people who come and go. But if they're really good and they're meeting everything that if you feel good about it, then make an offer and see. And then if it's not going to work out, identify and fire them quickly. But I would say on top of that, have a good onboarding program. Have the things that are in your control. You can have a good onboarding process. You can have an interview process. You can have a backup for those. These are things that you can do, and you can compete with the big guys. I mean, that's all they have on their end. They have a deeper bench of people that can interview. They're going to move through the process quicker with a contingent offer, and they're going to get that offer out very fast. Those are things that any shop can do. They just need to make it a priority and have the systems in place.
What would you say in terms of when do you move fast and when do you pause? Like and what's coming to my mind is when we were just talking about vibe, like a lot of times we'll see like on paper, oh yeah, they have all the technical skills, or maybe even in their interview they have the technical skills, or maybe a ride along, but there's like that little vibe thing that tweaks at you. Like, what's your thoughts around that? Because sometimes we're our own worst enemy. Like we get greedy. It's like, okay, we got another technician, but there's writing on the wall. What's your thoughts around that?
I would say try and figure out where it's coming from. If it's
Yeah,
coming from because you, and this is very typical with contractors or with any business owner, honestly, you've been
sure.
burned. You've hired four people from this other company and they all didn't work out, or you hired four people who had 20 years of experience and you couldn't train any of them out of their bad habits. And now there's a generalization. All people from this, all people that have this are like this. So I'm never going to hire these type of people. So if it's that kind of little voice in your head that you're listening to, I would say do not generalize people. Listen to them and give them, give them a chance without putting them in a bucket simply because of something that's on paper or a past experience of yours. But if there's a real something they said and you didn't pull on that thread during the interview, call them back and have a deeper conversation about it. Have a secondary person call them back and talk to them about the things that were giving you pause. Be open and honest and transparent at the front for sure. There might be a reason for anything that you misinterpreted, or that they, as soon as they start spilling the beans on whatever it was, you're like, okay, thank God I asked that question. So, it's really a matter of just digging in deep, and don't be afraid to call people back and have a further discussion and really dive into it if you have those feelings. If you can't really identify it, have somebody else. If you have somebody else in your organization that can have a second interview, even if it's just on the phone or a virtual interview quickly, if you're afraid you're going to lose them to the competition.
Yeah, that's good feedback. Do you, and that gets me to want to dig in a little deeper. Do you have a recipe, if you will, or a methodology that for your style of interviewing that you follow or that you think gets better results? Can we kind of dig in a little bit there?
Yes. So for our entire team, we follow pretty much the same interview protocol. I would say everybody has their own style of building rapport and communicating, but we want to find out, why did someone get into the industry? If you were a plumber, HVAC tech, or electrician, like what led you to do this? Um, on 9 times out of 10, it's because someone in their family. So their dad, their uncle, someone was in the industry and they learned at a young age. They were, apprenticing. They didn't even know they were apprenticing, but they were in it because some family member was. So then what do you love about being a technician? What do you still want to learn? So that is what do you love about it? Passion. What am I good at? Now I'm thinking about now you're taking pride in your work. And then what do you still want to learn? Do you have the intellectual curiosity, or do you think you know it all? Do you have some humility, or are you going to come in like, I know everything. There's nothing you can teach me about plumbing. I'm God's gift to plumbing. So that rubs most people the wrong way. So trying to pull out a little bit of that. And then, the basic questions for us that will screen out a ton of people. Do you have a clean driving record? Are you okay with the background check? Are you okay with the drug screen? And if there's a license requirement, do you have the license requirement that's needed? Are you okay with windshield time? This service area for X, Y, and Z company is pretty big. You live here, you could be going to a service call at 5 o'clock on a Friday over here. So are you okay with that? Because there's a lot of traffic in between there. So let's talk about make sure that you're good with that wherever you are. Where are you? Why do you want to leave the company you are at right now? Like, why are you looking for a new position? What are your compensation requirements? If it's a sales position, what are your conversion rates? What do you normally sell? What do you need to feed your family? What percentage are you getting now? Like we're diving into a good salesperson will ask a lot of questions. Do I generate my own leads? Do the leads come to me? Like now you really know that they know their stuff by some of the questions they ask. But we're going to performance-based pay. I'd say plumbers for sure. Even in some what was I was talking to someone in a separate industry, but their performance-based pay it was elevator technicians, performance-based pay for elevator technicians. So even like across the board. So are you used to that? Like, are you okay with that kind of pay? If you're not, then so, but we have our formula we go through. We want to weed people in, not weed them out,
Sure.
but qualify them for and make sure that they know what they're walking into. Then we sell the company. Everything's good. You sound awesome. Now we're talking about our client. Hey, they do this. They have these benefits. They do this for, as far as spiffs. This is what their top tech makes. Now we're going into all the cool things about whoever we're promoting. So that's kind of our formula, if you will. But each recruiter, I'd say, probably tackles it a little bit differently on their own, depending on who they're speaking with.
Do you have any questions around coachability? Anything that looks for whether someone's coachable or not?
Yeah, I would say just that he back to that humility
Okay.
question. Yeah, and generally speaking, if someone's been in the industry for 30 years, they've owned their own company, now they're coming in and they're going to be, let's say they're for some reason they're back to being a technician.
Hmm.
Let's talk about that. What's your process? Do you follow a process when you greet a homeowner? Are you okay with presenting options? Are you, there's a lot of people that push back on, I don't want to be a salesperson.
Hmm.
Well, you can look at it that way, but you could also look at it like you're helping your homeowner and you're making sure that when you walk out of the home, you've actually made sure that their home is in good condition and you have done a whole home inspection and you've given them options and you've thought about them in a way that's helping them, not that you're trying to sell something to them. So that we get a lot of people who push back on performance-based pay. I just want to go in and fix it. I'm not a salesperson. You're probably not coachable. So some of those things that just within the conversation, you don't have to pull on that thread too much. It'll just kind of
Yeah.
present itself.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What about like red flags? Like, what are some red flags that you would tend to see or hear and go, oh, I got to think about that?
Yeah, for management, it's different, but for technicians, if you're blaming your past employer for everything, and you've had and job hoppers, I would say they're what would 7 years ago, a job hopper, if you see someone who bounces around a lot, it means one thing. Nowadays, it's just more common.
Hmm.
So are you not gonna have like, are you what? If you don't want a job hopper, good luck because that's part of the industry.
Yeah.
It's really, really prevalent in recruiting as well. So
Yeah.
finding recruiters that have been at a job for a very long time is hard to do. So at what point do you where's your threshold on that? And I understand I have complete respect for somebody who says I want somebody who's been at their job for at least 4 years, and that's what we do here. And I'm not going to interview anybody who's bounced around. That's okay. Sometimes there's reasons for it, but we'll move past it. But I don't know. That's sometimes a red flag. But really, for me, the red flag is when you have that low energy. You're
Hmm.
blaming everybody else. You're the victim. You're not going to take responsibility for anything, and it's somebody else's fault. And you'd be shocked at how many people that comes out in why are you leaving your current job? See that you had 3 jobs in the past 4 years. Tell me more about that. Well, they didn't appreciate me, and this other person was shady, and they're terrible people. And yeah, it's just writing on the wall that's a person problem. That's a them problem.
Yeah. How about culture fit? Like, I know obviously vibe and energy would play into some degree of that, but how do you try to get the right match for the right client? Like, is there anything you consciously do, or how do you get that match?
We're pretty intentional if the client wants us to hire on that. Some of our clients will say, hey, we're going to tackle that when they get into our office. We have our core values on our wall. We have them in our brochure. Like we've got them tattooed on our on our body. We're going to talk core values when they get in. So don't worry about that. Others are like, yes, can you talk about these are our core values. These are why they're important to us. We definitely want you to talk about them. So we'll include them in our script. We'll pick out a couple and say one of them that we had for an old client was no jerks. So that was pretty easy, but the others have been humility was one that was a big one for, and so we really wanted to pull on that thread of are they going to come in like I'm the God's gift to plumbing? You're not going to work out at our the client we're recruiting for. So we specifically talked about those core values and asked them to provide examples on how they embodied that. What were their some of their own core values that they lived by on a daily basis? And so we can get in pretty deep. It really will let the client drive that, how much they want us to do that.
Where do you find branding plays into your job as a recruiter? Like, do you find if you get hired to do recruiting, do you find your job's way easier if a company has like a kick charge type image? Does that even play into it at all? What are your thoughts around that as a recruiter? I'm really curious.
It can go both ways.
Really?
So, and it doesn't, it's the branding, I would just say the reputation in general.
Okay.
Um, so if you're in, Northern Virginia market is, but I'm going to pick on a different market. We recruit for someone up in the Northeast and they dominate their area. They're huge, great company, 400 or 500 people. They just really own the territory. We get as many people who say, I will not work for that company.
Mm,
It's terrible. They fired my brother-in-law, whatever, as ones that are like, oh my God, I've always wanted to work for them. They're my dream job. So it can go both ways. If you are that big, you're going to have both. You're going to have
yeah.
people you've heard terrible things and you've made someone mad that they know, and then you're going to have people who've been like, drive past your van and are like, oh my God, I just can't wait to work there one day. So it can go both ways. If you're in a smaller market and or if you're in a market where there's just a ton of options, yes, everyone wants to work. I would say technicians like driving home a vehicle. They like driving around a vehicle that's nicely wrapped. They want to have good, nice uniforms. They want to feel like they're representing a good company that has a good reputation in the industry. So it does matter. It does matter. And
Yeah.
if some of them, like there's a company down in Florida that does a lot on social media, and people I think see their funny things that they're doing and they want to be a part of that culture.
Yeah.
So there is brand awareness. And I saw them not too long ago and had people, they were standing there talking to me, but random people were coming up, oh my God, I've seen you on Facebook, you're so funny. And so it's little things that you can do to make people want to work for your company, but
Yeah.
as a whole I would say there's only so much you can control in that.
Yeah. Do you have a certain type of client that you feel you may not be able to help the best? Like, is there any certain things and where I'm going with this question is if there's some people out in the audience, maybe there's some things that they can do, they can help their company a little bit more to make someone like you more effective.
Um, I would say someone we can't help. I don't know that there's anybody we can't help. I would say if you we talk to a lot of contractors that feel very discouraged. They don't feel like that they can get past the hurdle of talent. They just been burned. You can just hear it. You see it when you're talking to them that they just feel like beaten up and discouraged about it. And at that point, I don't say this to them, but I often want to say, you have low energy. You need to go out and talk to somebody and you cannot treat people all like all the people that have burned you in the past. You have to change your mindset and we had one customer that used to for his salespeople, sell me this pen. We would be and then he would be really mad at us that those people couldn't sell him the pen. And I just wanted to be like, you know what? I don't know that I could, and we couldn't help him because it was just so old school and so set in his ways that I really tried, but it was, it's so for us, we try to be, we are, I feel like we're subject matter expert. We know what works, but if you're to a point where you're so discouraged and kind of just burned by their past employees that you can't get your mind right around it. I don't know what to
Yeah.
that's somebody else that needs to help them.
So Kelly, I had this is the funniest one I've ever heard. Um, I had someone say their sneak interview question, I'll call it, was, "What's the last joke you heard?" And if you didn't have a joke on the top of your mind, that basically meant like you weren't a good candidate for him. And they were like adamant about this. They were like, if someone knew a joke, that always turned out to be a good hire, so they wouldn't hire anyone if they didn't know it. And I was like, oh man, I'd never get hired there. I'm not
Yeah.
good with jokes off the top of my head.
No, no, my father-in-law would have been hired like 50 times over because he just had like a litany of 150 jokes he knew at all times. But I don't recall jokes that
Yeah, yeah.
no, I would have to make something up on the fly and it probably wouldn't be funny.
Yeah.
But
Which in itself is kind of funny, Kelly.
maybe. But yeah, no, that's interesting. I've not heard that one.
Yeah, I haven't hadn't either prior to that. Okay, so good stuff. So I do want to, before we wrap up, just a couple more minutes. Who should be using your service? Like, who should reach out to you, and in what positions? Like, clients oftentimes will have trouble finding CSRs, for example, or obviously technicians are a common one. Are there certain areas that you're more successful at than others? Is it kind of across the board? Who should reach out to you?
Yeah, I would say any company that has that's in the home or commercial services that needs obviously technicians, CSRs, dispatchers. We've hired bookkeepers, director of marketing, COOs, CEOs of multi-million dollar platform companies for private equity, integrators, vice presidents, whatever. I mean, it really runs. We're apprenticed to the C-suite, 100%. Anybody in the ecosystem, we've hired them, permit pullers, coordinators, like people make up titles all the time. We'll go find them. So it's really, I love the industry when we truly niched down and niched into home services. That's where we saw real success, is because and then we could really move the needle for our customers. So we partnered with a company down in Florida in July and have hired 21 people for them since then. So we can really, really, I mean, when there's a top priority and a big need, we're on it. So we can certainly move the needle for companies, and whether it's management or boots on the ground, field office, we'll help them all. So I wouldn't say there's not anyone we can't help. I'd say, that we love, I know there's a lot of talk right now between like private companies and private equity, and there's like this battle, but they're both good. There's space for both. There's good private companies and there's bad private companies. There's good private
Sure.
equity and there's bad private equity. So and I say bad, but there's better,
Yeah, yeah.
there's space for everyone, and we can help both.
Very cool. And then in terms of, so when I hear 21 clients, I think, wow, this is a fast scaling company. Most clients usually have like one-offs here and there. Is that a good match for your type of service? Are you guys, is that just a client you'll typically work with, that not necessarily high volume hiring, but as they on an as needed basis?
Sure, we can help them with that. It's what we find is
Yeah,
it's once they partner with us, if they're like an all three trades company, it they see what we can do, and all of a sudden they're like, hey, I can put more money into marketing now because they're going to get me the people I need. So it changes the game.
hmm,
So that's what we want to be able to do, is say you have the confidence that we can bring you the people. So now you can go and concentrate on getting the leads, the calls on the board. Um, and now we can, especially if we have the advance notice. So if they're in their business planning workshops, they're looking at next year, they're looking at the where how much they want to grow. What does that marketing look like? How many, and you drill down, they know how many more techs they need. That's when you have that information and you're, be a month ahead. I need the techs in March. Let us start in February, and then we can really make a difference. So it's not that we can't help smaller companies. We just need organized companies are the ones that we can really make an impact on, because they know what they want. They have their processes in place, and they know when they need the people, and then we can really be an asset to them.
Yeah, good stuff. Okay, last question. How about a mantra? Do you have something that you kind of live by or that you lean into as far as an entrepreneur?
Our mantra for 2025 has been the culture of accountability
Ah,
and radical accountability and ownership for whatever is on your plate. And that has been something that we've identified in our organization as it was much needed. It changed our culture. We had some people that did not like that, and they're not part of our organization anymore. Major pushback from some, and that's okay because,
yeah.
but that's where we needed to go. Was radical responsibility and ownership and accountability. So it's been fun, honestly, for the people for to have a team. It's changed the dynamic of our company to do that. I saw on Facebook or on LinkedIn a post from I won't name the company, but he had commented on somebody. He said, "Well, we've instituted a culture of accountability, and we're just through the hump." And it impacted our revenue. And I thought that's so funny that a home services company went through the same thing that internally we went through, and we're at the same place. And I know they're a fairly big organization and they've been around for a really long time. So I'm like, the fact that they're going through it and they're a decades old company. It's just but it's one of those things I think you have to constantly be evolving and continuous improvement. And we're on the other side of that, and it's absolutely fantastic.
That's awesome. And one thing you said that is just so wonderful and so spot on is when you make a decision to make a change like this or focus on something, you will have some shakeout and you have to be okay with that. Like that's part of that change is to the people that are aligned with what you want to be aligned with and what works for your company, stay on board, and the ones that really weren't probably servicing you well anyway, if for whatever reason doesn't make them bad people, but they're a better fit for someone else. So that's a real important part of it. So it's cool that you kind of embrace that.
Yeah, it's you know what you know what you need to do. It's
Yeah,
doing it and
yeah,
making, the decision isn't the hard part. It's taking action on that decision is hard. And then, there's all these people I follow on Instagram that do the hard things. It's so true. Do the hard things. But you have to
yeah.
get past that, and you do have to be able to you have to know that you got to go through the mud to get to the other side. So
Yeah. Okay, good stuff. Few actionable takeaways that I took away. Just our vacancies are costing us money. Let's say make sure we're measuring those. Really important from Kelly's thoughts and comments that she shared. I think another big thing was just we got to move a little more intentional in our hiring. I'm leery of you using the word fast, but maybe it is fast. We just have to be more intentional and quicker to get to our decision making, or else we're probably going to lose to the competition. And then I would say hire for attitude. We use the word vibe, but I think, you can't emphasize enough that it's got to be a person that brings a good energy to our office. Anything I missed or anything you want to add?
no, just it's a competitive advantage to have a
Yeah,
sense of urgency.
yeah, yeah.
So an
It's a good
intentional
one.
sense of urgency, but it is a competitive advantage for
Yeah,
sure.
good one. That's great. Great point.
Yeah.
Okay, website, Work With Your Handz. Hands is with a Z. I love that. Workwithyourhandz.com. I'll also put your LinkedIn, both your business and your personal. You go, I'm probably going to mess up I believe it's your maiden name, Kelly Rowlett Presgrave. Am I
Rowlett,
saying?
Rowlett,
Rowlett. Sorry. Okay.
Rowlett,
Kelly
That's okay.
Rowlett Presgrave is what your LinkedIn name is if anyone wants to look
Mm,
it up, but it'll also be in the show notes. Kelly,
yep.
thank you so much. That was an awesome conversation. Can't
Yeah.
thank you enough for being here.
All right. Thanks for having me, Tyler. It was fun.
Welcome to Profit and Grit. It's profit and grit, not luck and a wish. From the wrench to the spreadsheet, we're stacking our chips. Slow season hits, man, we tighten the ship. It's the blue collar way we build, not dip.